The sun is shining. I want to begin with a land acknowledgement, and it's especially poignant when we're talking about experiential learning today, because experiential learning connects us to each other, connects us to place, and grounding experiential learning in a land acknowledgement reminds us that learning happens on Indigenous lands, and with it carries responsibilities to relationship, to reciprocity, to respect. So I want to say that the university and myself as a settler on these lands respect the sovereignty, lands, history, languages, knowledge systems, and cultures of all First Nation, Métis, and Inuit peoples and nations. So welcome to Lunch with EDNA. As Cosette mentioned, I'm Dr. Michelle Anderson-Draper, and I'm an instructional designer. And my portfolio has active and experiential learning in it, and we are going to talk about how the two complement each other but are different. I'm going to ask you to kindly hold your questions till the end because I have so much content that I want to share with you. I want to make sure that we get through it, and I will explain how that is. The little person in the picture is my granddaughter, Claire. She is, oh my goodness, she's 15 months now and just starting to walk, but I love that picture because she's so focused on that zebra. And teaching at its core is a relational activity. And especially when we talk about experiential learning, it's important for us as faculty, instructors, facilitators of experiential learning to create safe environments, safe contexts where our students can try new things, can experience new things, and there will be mistakes. And I have colleagues at the University of Alberta who talk about mistakes being an important part of the process to learn as we're experiencing. And so I like this photo because it creates that sense of safety, but yet having our students be able to experience. And I'll always take a time to show a picture of my granddaughter when we can. Today, by the end of the session, you should be able to describe experiential learning within active learning. And when we did ask about questions in advance, what questions you had on experiential learning, many of you did talk about wanting to be able to define or explain experiential learning. I'm also going to aim to give you lots of practical strategies that you can try in your own context to design or strengthen experiential learning. I also have some colleagues on the call who will share a little bit about how EL is happening at the University of Alberta. So that is our plan for today. I mentioned we asked about questions and you had questions. Oh my goodness, so many questions. Inquiring minds want to know. You wanted a definition and practical strategies. I gotcha there. But there were tons of other questions. And when I met with Cosette to talk about it, we had to admit that we have a limited time together today. So I won't be able to answer all the questions. But Cosette suggested a Google Doc. And so I've been adding to the Google Doc. There are more questions that have come in recently that I haven't yet had a chance to. I haven't comprehensively answered all of them, but I've tried to put information. That's where our crowdsourcing will come in, and for you to be able to also add questions and information, resources, anything that you have, because I'm sure that many of you on this call have resources to do with experiential learning that you can promote. So Cosette will put the Google Doc link in the chat, and Cosette, if you haven't already, you can also put the link to the slides. Okay, perfect. But we'll share that link to the Google Doc again at the end, because I don't want to lose you too much going down the question over there, because I have lots to share with you today. But not all active learning is experiential. Doesn't make active learning any less valuable to do. But let's look at that for a moment. With active learning, it's engagement and participation. With experiential learning, you're extending that to skill development, to growth, to as what we saw in our word cloud, many authentic, practice-based context. It can still happen in a classroom setting, but you're making that connection, that theory to practice. Helping students navigate ambiguity. Reflection is a core piece of experiential learning. So it has that reflective piece, and active learning doesn't generally have that embedded in. If it does, it's usually brief. And experiential learning is more of a sustained, intensive application throughout, that planned pedagogy throughout, where active learning can be shorter. But I wanted to give you some practical strategies, so I'm going to spend just a moment on highlighting some active learning strategies that you can use and share. The ones on bullet points are what our instructors identified as their favorite ones during a course redesign. So our tried and true think, pair, share, we've got whiteboards, debates, all sorts of, fun things, 1-minute papers, write as much as you can in 1 minute about the content. But there are so many different strategies, and this link down below has 226 active learning strategies that you can draw from. So a colleague had shared that with me a while back, and I think it's a great one. So lots of active learning. If you want to add your favorite active learning strategy in chat and share it with others, please do. So then what is experiential education? Well, the education piece is the design, the philosophy, the pedagogy. And the learning piece is that learner who is doing the meaning-making process. And Jennifer Dobbs Oates, who I met through the Society of Experiential Education, did a study with Purdue University, with her colleagues there, to really define what experiential education meant to them. And I love it because it's so comprehensive. It's simple, but it's complex because it's got the pieces in there, but it makes it easy to remember that experiential education is planned, it's intentional. Although sometimes as facilitators, we may look like we're just walking around watching things unfold, but we've planned, we've put in our intention of what the outcomes we would like to see happen. It's the authentic experience, so it's beyond the classroom. It can happen, as I mentioned, in the classroom. You have guest speakers that come in, you have community partners that might be virtual. And then the core piece is student reflection. So there is a piece of before, during, and after where students will make meaning and reflect on what they've learned, the skills that they've developed, the impact that experiential learning opportunity has had for them. And experiential learning is happening, absolutely happening, I think, on many campuses across Alberta and our country and the world. At U of A, and I appreciated someone put learning by doing in the WooClap slide, because broadly that's how we're defining it as an institution. So it's broadly experiential learning as learning by doing with purpose, both inside and outside the classroom, and includes reflection. Now, the interesting thing, though, is, yes, that's broad. When we tried to look for a definition that encompassed the whole university, I looked at different definitions that faculties had on their website. And I tried to see what the elements were. And some faculties will look more at professional skill development as their focus. Others are community engaged learning with an element of service. There's land-based learning. Some are looking at the social impact. But in the essence, it is learning by doing with the reflection piece. So the link that is there is our University of Alberta Experiential Learning website. And I really do encourage you to take some time and play around in there and look at the different pieces. I'm going to give you a highlight, but there's so much great information on that website. And in the questions that some of you asked in advance, you wanted some resources. So this is one of the resources that you can draw from, and I'll share others as we go along. So when we look at experiential learning, At the University of Alberta, we talk about sort of, I guess, buckets, if you will, or areas. And I think many of you are probably aware of or work integrated learning. So placements, internships, opportunities. We also talk about research-based experiential learning, land-based, which we'll talk about a little bit, and my focus, which is innovative and strategic experiential learning. So what does that mean? Well, here are some examples, and you'll see these on our website. So when I'm working with instructors or faculty in my role as an instructional designer, and they want to start with experiential learning or expand it or scale it up, we look at some of these activities, if you will, and how we can apply design thinking. I know engineering does a beautiful job of that. Project-based learning, competitions, teamwork. That's a real skill that students will often get in experiential learning because they're working in teams. So this is on our website, and I encourage you to take a look at it. I wanted to just give you a little bit of the theory so that for those of you who may not be aware of sort of the emphasis of or where experiential learning frames itself is it's Kolb's framework, right? So you have that experiencing, the reflecting, the thinking, the acting. And what's interesting is our students or participants in experiential learning may come in at any of this cycle. Maybe they need to think about what they know about whatever problem they're trying to address or activity they're about to do. Maybe they need to reflect on what experience they've had previously. Some students, some instructors want to just jump right into the experience. Again, a colleague of mine puts out a whole bunch of tools and sort of gives general guidance, but has the students go and figure it out and act there. Recently, I read an article that critiqued Kolb's for not considering the group part of experiential learning. And so there's certainly that enhanced collaboration or communication and collaboration, teams, problem solving, stronger dynamics, shared insight, and those may be outcomes that you're looking for your students to develop through experiential learning. There's a fair amount of evidence being compiled now on the benefits of experiential learning. In the reference list, I've given you my favorite articles. And what we're seeing is higher student engagement, increased confidence, and a greater ability for students to apply their skills when engaged in experiential learning as compared to traditional courses. One of my focuses as an instructional designer is I am providing support to instructors of large classes. And so I've been doing some thinking and talking and discussion and reading about experiential learning in large classrooms. And it can happen. Needs some additional thinking and some supports. But what some of the researchers found in large classes is that experiential learning activities contribute to deeper reflection, increased collaboration, and reducing isolation. And that's a real important one to note, especially when we're talking about large classes, because we have, let's think about our first year students who are at increased risk of attrition, that they may be coming to the University of Alberta or any of your post-secondary institutions not knowing anyone. And so if we can create an environment where they are interacting and they're making those connections, then that will help them with their feelings of isolation. And then higher order cognitive and skill development. So Janice will remember this activity. Thank you. I'll give credit where credit's due. I want to engage you to let me know if you think this is experiential. So on your Zoom, you should have a thumbs up automatically. I had to look. You can search for the thumbs down because if you don't use your thumbs down very often, it won't show up. Or you can go just show me your thumb. If you're not sure, so agree, thumbs up, disagree, thumbs down, or not sure, sideways. I wasn't able to find a sideways one on, oh, thanks, Brent. I already see a thumbs down. That's awesome. Okay, let me know. This activity is purely theoretical in nature or lacks the practical application. Is it experiential? Oh, look at the thumbs down and the shakings of the heads. Okay, no, it's not. Absolutely. Because there's no practical application. There's no connection to theory to practice. Is it experiential? The problem posed is close-ended with only one correct solution and one path to reach the correct solution. Let me see those thumbs. We're getting no. And that's the beauty of experiential learning is that many of the problems are, shall we say, complicated, complex, even, you know, those wicked problems that don't have clear solutions. And part of the learning process is to help students understand these problems. Is it experiential? The experience incorporates an activity or discussion that requires learners to reflect back on what they have learned. So is it experiential? All right. We're getting some thumbs up there. Excellent. So yes, it can be experiential. What would make me also put my thumb up is that reflection piece. And then the discussion. So reflecting on what they've learned and discussing. Let's talk a moment about reflection. I suspect most of you are familiar with the Universal Design for Learning principles. And as I mentioned earlier on, as facilitators of experiential learning, we're wanting to create safe conditions to guide students and synthesize their experience. By giving students multiple ways to demonstrate their learning, part of a universal design for learning, and inviting students to help you co-create. That's what I love. I love that about experiential learning is that we're bringing our students in as partners to help us co-create the reflection tools, the assessment. Reflection, I like to say, and not everybody will do the before, during, and after. Sometimes it's just sort of the after, and you know, that's it. But you know, asking students to reflect on what happened before. What do they know? What do they want to know? And then what have they learned? Our KWL. And there's lots of ways that students can reflect. Some of the ways I have in the notes of the slides, if you've gotten a link from Cosette, there's podcasts, photo stories. We have some great examples of instructors sending students out on campus to take pictures of things and then reflect back. So, you know, having photos, showing photos, just talking about photos. Portfolios are a nice way for students to build that evidence of their learning. And then whenever possible, engage students in that choice. If you have favorite reflection ways to encourage your students to reflect, please put those in chat. So this ties to assessment. And that was a question that folks had as well, is how do you assess experiential learning? And that's another one that's during the experience, not just after it. I suggest you can use some of these reflection tools, the so what, the now what, the deals. You can have students describe the experience and analyze the experience through the learning goals, and then articulate their learnings. I will say around assessment that general assessment, good assessment strategies hold true here. So utilizing diverse methods, being clear with students what, if you're using a rubric or what the expectations are, and even better if you can set those together. sometimes with our syllabus, it's hard. We might have to put something in there, but being sort of able to expand with students by giving them choice. And yeah, so what now what, KWL. The other thing that experiential learning offers is an opportunity to integrate feedback from multiple sources. So peer review, peer partners. We have, I think the University of Alberta uses feedback fruits for that. So that's a fairly, I think, a new call it a membership or subscription that we have that's available for our faculty and instructors and staff. And I know there's a number of University of Alberta people on this call, so that would be something you could use there, feedback fruits. And then that idea of student-centered when you're looking at assessment. And Wilson et al., that's a great article there on assessment. So if you want to learn more about it, and also, feel free to add to that Google Docs later if there's some questions. I think assessment was one of those that I've put in there if you have ideas around assessment. I have a colleague, Dr. Valvolie Georges, who is a senior consultant and talks about focuses on rather Indigenous pedagogies and curricula. And we've had a talk, we've been working together about decolonizing learning and how experiential learning can add to that. And so land-based learning in our Western education systems, they almost exclusively happen indoors, separating students from the world. How can we design assessment strategies that require engagement with the physical land? So we had our green and gold teaching showcase recently, and I was observing an instructor who was teaching about columns and bridges, and he had started with a demo. He had two students hold a pole, and at the end, and he had a heavy water bottle, and we were watching it go back and forth. And then he called on the students to go and look at bridges. And even, he didn't suggest it, but he could have extended it by take pictures of the bridges that you see and identify the different types of columns. So how can we encourage students, if not our ability to take our 150 or 200 students out on a field trip per se, how can we? And one of the fortunate things with the University of Alberta museums is we have over 30 different museums on campus that as part of our university facilities that students can go and use. So thinking more broadly that beyond how we can have our students go to place. And storytelling. It's not, it's something we can share. One of the stories that when I was reflecting, when I first got involved in experiential learning, I was a TA in a program planning and evaluation class. And I TA'd it for 2 years, and then I co-taught it, and then I taught it because the faculty member went on sabbatical. And it was a great course. Like, students got matched with community groups, and they developed a program plan and a program evaluation for them. But it just never seemed to kind of close the loop. And so one of the things that I did was I invited the community groups to campus. I had a room, and I had the students display their program plans and talk about their program plans. And so what that did is it gave students the opportunity to see their other colleagues, their peers, the other program plans, and network with a whole bunch of community partners that came. And so that's something when I think about how I can extend a course by making those connections. That's something I did when I first started teaching. A couple of questions that you asked at the beginning when you were registering is, what does it look like in practice? Give me some examples. And so I'm delighted that a colleague, Dr. Allison Fieldbird, is on the call right now. And Allison comes from and is the Experiential Learning Program Lead in the Faculty of Law. And they have a very cool land-based learning opportunity. So Allison, I wonder if you mind sharing just briefly a little bit about that and maybe some of the experiential learning that you do in your role. Over to you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yes, we have some really cool land-based learning activities in the Faculty of Law. Michelle has highlighted two of them. We have students that go out to Bamfield on Vancouver Island through our Oceans Law and Policy course. While they're there, they discuss sort of doctrinal law, which is the law of the sea, is what we call it, the law of the sea. And they learn a little bit about the law of the sea before they leave, and then while they're there, they are immersed in sort of the natural world, sort of seeing how the doctrinal pieces that they have explored in their seminar back here in Edmonton, how those sort of come to life out in an actual sort of marine oceanic environment. And it's a tremendously popular course, and it takes place in the spring. So students go out and have a really great experience, not only learning about the law of the sea, but also really kind of creating a community amongst themselves, particularly for students who are interested in environmental law. So there is sort of that aspect of professional development as well, and networking in a way. We also have our Wakotoan intensive course where students go north into northern Alberta in community, and they work to do the central activity of this class is to take part in a traditional home tanning of a moose hide. What's really interesting about this course is that it is co-developed and co-taught by Cree elders and a community-based team in the community where they go. And I think for me, like Michelle, a couple slides ago, you had talked about sort of one of the differences, or what are the differences between active learning and experiential learning. And I think one of the key pieces for us in the Faculty of Law that separates these activities, or I guess denotes them as experiential learning, is the fact that they are taught within community, and community members contribute to the teaching. So of course there's a professor, of course there's an instructor, but we bring community members into the course to co-design, to co-create, to co-assess, to interact with the students while they're in these experiences. And I think within the Faculty of Law, that's a key component of experiential learning, is that there exists a sort of a co-creative aspect with community members, whether they be lawyers or whether they be subject matter experts in other ways. And so both of these will be offered this spring and summer, and they're highlights for many students in our faculty. And yeah, and these are two of quite a few experiential learning activities that we offer in the Faculty of Law. These are probably our most specific land-based learning activities. So thank you. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. And yeah, thank you for the
Yeah.
time, Michelle.
Oh, thank you. Are you able to put your email in chat in case
Yeah,
anyone wants to follow up with you about law-specific experiential learning?
yes, or anything else for that matter. I'd be happy to chit chat about anything. There we go.
Okay. Excellent. Let's see here. There we go. And I invite Tori, and I know Janice is also on the line. So my colleagues from engineering have a very cool a toolkit and so many great resources, but do some awesome experiential learning. And this was the slide that Janice had for our workshop. So I'll start with you, Tori, if you don't mind sharing a little bit, please.
Absolutely, yeah. So, hi everyone. My name is Tori Dance. I'm the manager, experiential and professional education here in the Faculty of Engineering. I manage a relatively new unit. It was formed in late 2022, early 2023, after consultation with students that were calling for more experiential learning to be integrated into their engineering undergraduate degrees. And so, we have a number of areas of focus. We have a broad portfolio that works both on the experiential learning as well as the professional development side. And kind of the line between those two gets a little bit blurry sometimes. But our dean, Dr. Simon Abarisk, has made it a strategic objective for our faculty to become recognized as a leader in experiential learning in engineering education in Canada. And so it is a real priority from the faculty. Our unit supports and offers experiential learning in kind of three categories or three areas that are actually well represented by the photos here. And so one of the areas that we offer support is on the extracurricular side. And so this would include supporting our engineering student projects, and that toboggan-looking thing is in fact a toboggan. It's part of the Great Northern Concrete Toboggan Race team here in engineering that produces one of those every year. And so we have 20 engineering projects that are doing everything from the toboggan to putting a cube satellite into space to traveling to developing countries to build bridges and to build footbridges. So students that are really doing amazing things and require a great degree of support on the administrative side. So our team supports there, as well as supporting on everything from field trips, site visits, hackathons, and one of the things that's also pictured here in the bottom would be connected. I believe this is either water school or part of one of our professors' courses where they do. Where she took students down the North Saskatchewan to canoe, and so we do support curricular experiential learning, both from a logistical side as well as an education and advocacy side. And so we support profs who are already doing it. There's lots of stuff already happening in engineering in the world of experiential learning. So a lot of it is supporting stuff that's already happening, as well as supporting profs who want to start to do new stuff. And so the professor who introduced the canoeing in her class then had an idea to do what we call water school, which was a flagship experience where we took students up to the headwaters of the North Saskatchewan River and brought them down over the course of a number of days and interacting and doing some of that land-based learning that we've been talking about already, and understanding how engineers interact with the water and everyone else also interacts with the water. So we do offer a great degree of support on the curricular side, and Dr. Janice Miller-Young, who's been mentioned a few times, and I'll turn the microphone over to in a second, supports really heavily on that side. Um, The last thing I'll mention is what I would refer to as maybe the co-curricular side, and again, the lines blur a little bit, but our team also operates the Elko Engineering Garage, which is a makerspace. It's pictured in the top left hand of this slide, and it is a really wonderful facility that's intended for engineering students, but actually open to everyone in the U of A community, with a wide range of capabilities and really originally the idea behind it is it was meant to be, kind of the equivalent to the family garage where students who haven't had a chance to, swing a hammer or do whatever and growing up, provide them a chance to get hands-on and integrate some of the skills and experiences that will connect to their coursework. And so, yeah, that's a section or a cross section of the things that are happening in the Faculty of Engineering. I'll put my contact information in the chat, and I saw a few questions kind of pop by as well, in terms of some of the logistics of the things we're doing. So I'll drop some answers in the chat. I know the question is always about scalability and size and how many students can we take from the headwaters of the North Saskatchewan down. So we work at a number of different scales, everything from these very small experiences to supporting professors in larger contexts as well. So that's me, and Michelle, thank you so much for the chance to talk a little bit about what we're doing.
Thank you. Can you also put the link to the toolkit? Because that's such a great
Absolutely. Yeah,
Thank
absolutely.
you.
I can drop that in as well.
Janice, anything you want to add? Or this was your slide to start with. So.
Nothing really to add except that I guess on my side, some of the things I'm doing is creating some resources for faculty who want to perhaps do smaller things in their courses. I see the comment that just came up about land-based learning is not something everybody can do. So I'm working with a couple of people who are redesigning, well, one who's redesigning their lab, one who's teaching a new course, which is very experiential, and we designed a survey together to get some feedback from the students on that course, developing some resources for faculty on experiential learning and how to do it well, and those sorts of things. So not everything has to be a big flagship opportunity, although they do make for great experiences and great pictures for our slideshows as well.
Thanks, Janice. Appreciate you and being here too. It's great. Some of you asked about challenges and mitigations, and so I wanted to talk about this as well, just to how do you address, students might be more comfortable, used to, it might be more familiar to have a lecture-based course, and so when we're engaging, there might be a little bit of resistance. And if you can explain why, the purpose, and really the why before the how, and scaffold. So just what Janice was saying, not everything has to be these great big experiences. Start slowly and build. We can do experiential learning and large enrollment. We need to draw on our supports, our resources, some peer groups, clear directions, really important. Assessment load, again, we talked a bit about assessment using simple, transparent criteria, and then prioritizing the core content, because sometimes, someone might say, well, I just have so much content to get through. How can I do it? And I had to do this. There's just so much content I wanted to share on experiential learning. So I had to prioritize what were the key messages that I wanted to share today. One of the questions that someone had is, how do you incorporate experiential learning in the course, at the course level, the program level, and institution level? And so I wanted to really highlight some of the things that we're doing at the institution level. You can, at the course level, incorporate more active learning, have that authentic project and reflection, that connection to theory to practice, and then offer a student choice are great ways to incorporate it. At the institution level, you want to work to build capacity. Want to see if you can't have experiential learning embedded in the greater strategic documents. So we're fortunate that our U of A SHAPE plan, which is our strategic plan, reinforces experiential learning by encouraging us to cultivate collaborative global citizens through high impact learning. And then our commitment to braiding past, present, and future, our Indigenous strategic plan, can also be advanced through experiential learning opportunities that involve students working directly with Indigenous knowledge and communities. And I haven't been able to keep up with chat too much, but I did get a quick look when Tori was presenting. I was listening, Tori, but I also got a chance to look at chat, and there's a beautiful example of what Faye is doing with land-based learning. And so I encourage you to take a look at that. We do have a student survey, and it was a bit surprising to me. And so we definitely have work to do. We're only 51, so just over half of our students were even aware that experiential learning opportunities were available to them in their program. So definitely what we can do as an institution is promote that. We have a dashboard that's been created to look at the number of courses that have experiential learning as part of them. Our Vice Provost has created an experiential learning council where people that are involved in experiential learning can come quarterly and connect. And then at CTL, and my colleagues, many of you on the call today, are part of our experiential gatherings where we meet monthly and we do show and tells. We go on field trips around campus. We're going to the Career Center next month. We put problems like last time we met, we talked about how do you do experiential learning in large classrooms, right? So it is this community where we come together to do more talking about experiential learning and making those connections, because sometimes it can be feeling a little bit isolating if you're in your own. So I just have a few minutes left, and I want to leave you with some final tips. So if you remember at the beginning, we talked about what is experiential education and learning. It's that planned pedagogy, that authentic experience, the student reflection. And if experiential learning is something that's new to you and you're joined this lunch with EDNA to learn a bit more about it, I echo what Janice was saying earlier. Start with mini activities. You don't have to fully redesign your course right away. Start building relationships with professional associations and community partners and inviting them. Course can't emphasize the reflection piece too much, so making that part of it and including student voice and engagement. To help those of you who asked for resources, I'm going to give a shout out again to our University of Alberta website. Oh, look at that, Tori, I put the Faculty of Engineering's toolkit on my resources already. CWIL Canada is the Canadian Organization for Work Integrated Learning. I mentioned the Society for Experiential Education. That's a US-based one. They did have their last conference was the first time in Canada. It was at Niagara Falls last fall. They're mainly US, but they've got members from everywhere, so that's a neat one. Give a shout out to the Taylor Institute. The University of Calgary has some amazing modules on experiential learning. So if you haven't looked at those, please do. And also remember our Google Doc. I'm going to keep adding questions. And so if you have comments and resources that you want to add, please do. And then add your favorite to either the Google Doc. Actually, probably the Google Doc is better than chat because I don't know that we keep chat. Although if we're being recorded, I probably do. But anyway, I encourage you to go and play in the Google Doc. And then here are those articles that I talked about. Please engage. There's a growing number of articles on experiential learning. This is just a few that I've highlighted for you that I find that was most helpful in terms of what we talked about today. And so what I encourage you to do now is reflect on the last 50 minutes that we've spent together. And I'd love if someone was able to share one takeaway, something that was helpful for them in chat, or please do raise your hand if you're able to share a takeaway. And then if there is just a minute or two to answer some questions. And thank you to my colleagues who have been putting answers and information in chat.